Highlights of the news today, Friday 14th of November 2014. Army veteran loses medals after being attacked by youths on way to Remembrance service in Keighley. Rotherham police obstructed investigations into child sex abuse. Rochdale sex groomer lawyer fears a gang of child abusers are in Birmingham. Norway anti-racist group demands Jews be banned from attending Kristallnacht Memorial. A message from Nick Griffin, the way forward. Truckloads of Red Bull fueling Islamic State. Thought for the day, what they don't tell you. And finally, a Jewish joke. UK News. Army veteran loses medals after being attacked by youths on way to Remembrance service in Keighley. An old soldier was jumped by a gang of thugs who stripped him of his berry and poppy in a heartless attack as he made his way to a Remembrance Sunday service. George Gill's medals, awarded for service in Ulster and Cyprus during his 18-year infantry career with the Duke of Wellington's regiment, are also now missing. Police are hunting the teenagers responsible. Mr Gill, 69, revealed the attack, which almost sent him sprawling to the ground, happened shortly after his release from hospital for heart surgery. He was walking alone through Lund Park, a short distance from his home, when the yob struck. Someone had been having a bonfire in the park and I was just thinking it would cost the council money to clear up the mess. Then the next thing I knew, these lads came around the back of me. I nearly fell down and they grabbed my berry and ran off laughing and joking. They also ripped the poppy from my blazer and left it on the floor. It was ruined, so I binned it. He also realised his medals had disappeared during the incident and a search of the area has failed to locate either the berry or the medals. Police also now search the area, but Mr Gill's possessions have not been traced. Inspector Sue Sanderson, who leads the Keighley area neighbourhood team, said, "We would appeal to anyone who saw a group of Asian youths acting suspiciously in the park at around the time of this incident, or anyone who may have seen them leaving the park afterwards." World at 8. Oh well, Asian youths. Now that covers a multitude of sins, doesn't it? It also means that nothing will be done for fear of offending the Muslim community. It really makes you sick to the stomach to realise that in this country we put up with our elderly being disrespected by foreigners when it would not happen in Pakistan or Saudi within this same religious group. What makes them so different to white yobs who are prosecuted? Rotherham police obstructed investigations into child sex abuse, Yorkshire Post. Police in Rotherham ripped up paperwork relating to a victim of child sexual abuse and stopped another from being examined by a doctor, according to a BBC documentary. One woman claimed a policeman called her a liar after she reported being abused aged 15. Police said both cases had been referred to the Independent Police Complaints Commission, the IPCC. Two women told BBC Inside Out Yorkshire that police obstructed investigations into their abuse. Carol, not her real name, was living in a children's home in the 1990s when she was taken on occasions by taxi to an Asian restaurant in the town. In one instance she was sexually assaulted. She told the BBC, "I told the staff at the children's home and my social worker and they said a police officer was going to pick me up and take me to a unit. The officer that used to come to the children's home regularly, he came and picked me up in a police car. He took me to a lay-by, kept calling me a liar, saying he'd read my files and that I was a liar and no one was going to believe me. It was more trouble than it was worth and he ripped my paperwork up. He dropped me back at the Indian restaurant, back with my abuser." Chief Constable David Crompton has asked the National Crime Agency to investigate matters relating to the Alexis J report into abuse in Rotherham, it said. The force has referred 15 people to the IPCC. All allegations will be investigated and where there is evidence of any misconduct, referrals will be made to the IPCC. World at 8. Truth will out, won't it? Even though it's too late to stop the spread of this vile practice and the payoffs to public officials for underage sexual abuse. Rochdale sex groomer lawyer fears a gang of child abusers are in Birmingham. The Brummie lawyer who helped convict the Rochdale child groomers has warned that he fears young girls are being abused in his home city. Nazir Afzal, the Crown Prosecution Service (CPS) national lead on exploitation, who was born and raised in Small Heath, said that race is an issue but stressed that it is not the main issue in child abuse. And he urged victims and witnesses to give evidence so that perpetrators could be convicted. "There isn't anywhere where child sexual abuse is not happening," Mr Afzal told Inner City Women's Group representatives at a meeting at South and City College campus in Soho Road, Handsworth. Greater Manchester has 280 operations. In one alone there are 200 suspects. It beggars belief that Birmingham and the West Midlands are somehow immune. This kind of abuse happens everywhere. I cannot tell you the extent of what is going on, but neither, regrettably, can I tell you that every girl in Birmingham is safe. Mr Afzal, who has been called a witchfinder by critics over his dogged pursuit of celebrities over historic allegations, argued that child abuse is not a race or religious issue, but a matter of men controlling women and young girls. He told the meeting organised by Labour, Perry Barr MP Khalid Mahmood and Longbridge councillor Jess Phillips that nationwide figures show the vast majority of child abuse is carried out by white males and happens within families. But he said that while street grooming is also less likely than in institutions or online, it seemed to involve a disproportionate number of Pakistani men. His own assumption is that vulnerable girls are out at night looking for attention, cars, food, drink and drugs, and that Pakistani men tend to be more involved in the late night economy, working as cab drivers in late night shops and takeaways. Oh, this is too much. Ethnicity is an issue, but it's not the issue. It's about male power, male control and vulnerable children being abducted, he said. His audience raised concerns that community leaders, including imams working in madrasas, tended to close ranks and not raise suspicions. Mr Afzal replied that he was not aware of any imams or priests or vicars for that matter reporting abuse, even though some probably have suspicions. He wants people to share their suspicions if, for example, they see young girls out with older men and it doesn't look right. World at 8. Very commendable, Afzal, but you forgot to mention, whilst you are virtually exonerating your own fellow Muslims, that it might not be ethnicity at the basis of these crimes, but rarely, if ever, is an underage Muslim girl gang raped by Muslims and put out to whore. It is a religious hate crime and should be punished as such. European news. Norway. Anti-racist groups demand Jews be banned from attending Kristallnacht Memorial. Norway, Israel and the Jews reports that a so-called anti-racism group known as SOS Racism demanded that Jews in Bergen be excluded from a weekend commemoration of Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass, a series of widespread attacks 76 years ago targeting Jews living under Nazi Germany. The Blaze, also in neighbouring Denmark, a socialist alliance used by the Kristallnacht ceremony to raise funds for Gaza, according to the New Anti-Semite, a blog that tracks European anti-Semitism. Kristallnacht took place on November the 9th and 10th, 1938. Self-labelled anti-racists have a difficult time internalising that on Kristallnacht we commemorate Jews and the destruction of Jews in Europe, a blogger at Norway, Israel and the Jews observed. In Bergen, the new SOS Racism refused to participate in the Kristallnacht commemoration since a representative from the Mosaic congregation was invited. Yes, they balked a Jew participating, Israel, Norway and the Jews blog added. Dr Ephraim Zuroff, director of the Israel office of the Simon Wiesenthal Centre, a Jewish human rights group, called the Norway incident a classic example of using the events of the Holocaust to attack the Nazis' primary victims, the Jews. Nye SOS Racisme said they will conduct their own procession with banners against Israel, such as Zionism is racism. On their website they explained that the day marks opposition to racism, harassment and genocide, but that today Israel is a racist state. The New English Review, which focuses on issues of anti-terrorism, jihad and Sharia, called the effort to exclude Jews from the Kristallnacht commemoration a moral inversion. Call it anti-Israelism or Palestinianism, it depicts IDF soldiers defending the sovereignty of the Jewish nation as the equivalent of Nazi stormtroopers. World at 8. No, it is a way of supporting the idiots in Gaza and downgrading the Israelis through anti-Jewish feeling. If I was a Jew, I wouldn't want to go near it anyway. I now hand you over to Nick Griffin, who points the way forward and is once more in charge.
The way ahead, a personal message from me, Nick Griffin. The great benefit of many so-called setbacks in life is that they compel those who endure them to careful analysis of what's really important, to think outside the box, and to work out a better way ahead. Never has this been truer than for me and close colleagues in the British nationalist movement over the last few months. As a result, I can tell you that the new movement, which is about to emerge from the Woodton Soviet train crash wreckage of the old BNP, is going to be innovative, efficient and well balanced in its aims and achievements. The party which refuses to adapt to new external circumstances is doomed, if not to complete collapse, then at least to utter irrelevance. And times have indeed changed, because we helped make them change. When I led the BNP to the electoral breakthroughs we enjoyed in the first decades of this century, we were a political icebreaker. It was our BNP that smashed through the censorship that had frozen immigration out of debate and the political process. The Leeds free speech trials, our election breakthroughs, and the way our public popularity grew with every fresh controlled media smear, it all combined to push ideas and slogans which had been demonised and outlawed for a generation into the mainstream. By March 2009, when the BNP appeared to be heading towards winning 5 or 6 MEP seats, the powers that be were so panicked by our relentless advance that the decision was made to unleash massive media hype for Nigel Farage. Every serious analyst knows that it was the BNP nationalist threat that forced them to let the UKIP patriotic genie out of the bottle. Before 2009, the taboo on our rhetoric was so strong that there was significant political space in which a real nationalist party could do well enough in elections, despite all the demonisation, to make them its measure of success and its motor of growth. But since then, with UKIP having an establishment licence to use our imagery and slogans without facing serious accusations of racism, just enough indeed to make the public view it as an anti-establishment operation, the space in which we used to win is no longer there. The whole of British electoral politics has been ratcheted so far towards us that our very success in reframing the debate has closed off the short-term electoral success road for real nationalists. We need to understand that the external circumstances in which we have operated have changed utterly, and therefore that we need to update and upgrade what we do accordingly. Anyone who denies this is either a fool or some kind of plant trying to waste your time and money with a bogus electoral mirage. It's the World War I lions led by donkeys syndrome all over again. Just one more big push and it'll all be over by Christmas, they say, sending the poor bloody political infantry into 1% of the vote massacres over and over again. It's time to stop their nonsense. Time to reinvent our nationalist struggle in ways that will bring results and rejuvenate our movement. Time to learn to fight on ground of our choosing at times that suit us. Time to win again. The first step is to take a long, cool look at UKIP. We must put behind us our natural resentment at seeing Farage and his media minders twist our words into traps for fools by the million. Instead, we must grasp the fact that UKIP's current runaway success is just another part of the historical process. It's another necessary step on the road to the Great Awakening. Our success set it all in motion, and our innovative actions over the next few years will keep the wheels of history turning. In fact, thanks to the still untapped power of social media to reshape politics, we have the potential to apply fresh pressures in ways that will make those wheels turn even faster. UKIP, far from being our nemesis, is the greatest opportunity ever to spread real nationalist ideas and influence. Our goals remain unchanged and unchangeable. What has changed is the extraordinary new potential for us to achieve them. Imagine how good it's going to feel knowing you're playing an active role in the new movement which is going to restore the fortunes of radical British nationalism. Imagine the relief of putting the confusion and despair of the last few months in the past and once again moving forward, helping to secure our right to continue to influence the historical process that our actions and sacrifices between about 2000 and 2009 set in motion. This is the renewed nationalist agenda around which we're going to rebuild the currently shattered unity of the real nationalist movement. Over the last 3 months, I've been studying, listening, discussing, reading, analysing and planning the way ahead. Now that our plans are coming together, I can tell you that I'm more excited and enthusiastic about our realistic prospects than ever. Why? I'll tell you shortly. Until then, keep the faith and spread the word, because together we're coming back.
Thank you, Nick. We await with bated breath the final chapter next Friday. World news. Truckloads of Red Bull fueling Islamic State. Oliver Lane on Breitbart writes, Taurian loaded Red Bull has become the energy drink of choice for Islamic fighters in Syria. As it is revealed, dozens of lorries are crossing the Turkish border every week, carrying cargoes of the drink to fatigued fighters battling militias and the Syrian state alike. The revelation of the unusual export came after new trade figures were published by Turkey, revealing the makeup of exports to war-torn Syria, which is still counted as a unified country, despite the border crossings now largely being in the hands of rebel groups, including the Islamic State. Lucrative tolls on passing trade are collected by whoever controls the crossing, meaning jihadist groups are very likely to be turning a healthy profit on taxing trade, tapping an income stream previously the sole reserve of the legitimate Syrian government of Bashar al-Assad. The Local reports the remarks of the owner of just one Turkish shipping company which runs lorries across the Syrian border before the goods are transshipped onto waiting Syrian trucks. On the remarkable volume of Red Bull he delivers, Mr Yilmaz said, while cement, vegetable oil, bulgur wheat, flour, salt and tinned fruit are popular, it is Red Bull that is most sought after by ISIS fighters. Every day we have 4 or 5 trucks carrying Red Bulls to Syria. World at 8. Way clear now to boycott Red Bull in the Western world. Try to show some unity somewhere, please. Thought for the day. What they don't tell you. What is worse in the modern day world of apparently too much information, disinformation and misinformation is the unspoken, that is, the never to be told to the public but known by all news, and information in this large and dirty bundle are a mixture of states and organisations which touch on our everyday life, but have been relegated to the sealed box for our own good. Now if you believe this one, you're a much nicer person than I, Gunga Din, and it is probably a Gunga Din whittling away on various and nefarious websites at that. The one that rises to the top is of course immigration, and the many corporations, governments and invisible powers behind this one, or else how could it be that we and Europe have and are the unwilling hosts to so many millions that we the people did not want and still do not need? The word is need, and it is this need for the Western world to import, help, finance, fertilise, not in a sexual sense hopefully, and want that has kept the vast majority of the people virtually dead from the neck up and the waist down for the last 50 years on this particular and far-reaching subject. We have been and are being continually told that the British are underbreeding, lazy, uneducated, untrained, drunk and feckless morons, especially our younger generations. Now, to me it is a wonder that any of our younger people have survived the vast and persistent propaganda machines of the media which started with our grandparents in the 1960s and is still carrying on but has now diversified to an even more ghastly and sentimental phase, that of promoting and exhorting challenged people of all varieties, sexual deviants of every sort of persuasion, plentiful abortions and pills on demand, and at the same time promoting surrogate mothers for queers and IVF for lesbians. It is simply Sodom and Gomorrah gone mad. And the awful truth is that nowadays there is barely a blush or simper when something is on the TV or YouTube that would have been considered morally bereft in times gone by, and it is not progress, it is social engineering at its most clever and devious. I am not a moralist, I'm not a Puritan, communist, Marxist or religious nut. I, as a human being, have made all the mistakes it's possible to make, but I draw the line at opening children's eyes to certain things before they're ready to take them on, and today's world has become a Garden of Gethsemane for so many youngsters who see and watch strangers seemingly obtain and do all the things they wish they could do, but are never on the right path where those opportunities could come along, many of which, thankfully, never do. So we in the UK have an entire generation of losers, in the American phrase. So what does a country do? Well, the UK was never uninhabited or sparsely inhabited by indigenous tribes, well not since the Romans, and needing millions to migrate to this country and make it grow, but we have acted as if this was the case. Bring me your lost, unwanted and greedy and we will welcome them is the wording that should have been put on a large statue of Britannia standing in the Thames around 50 years ago, along with gun turrets. Successive governments have treated this country as if it's a canvas needing more and more people, and the reason? Our existing corporations, manufacturers and businesses found employing staff more difficult in the 60s as our education was better, our social mobility was better and opportunities were very different to that of the poor old ex-service lads that came back to nothing on Blighty and were grateful for low wages. The 60s were a forward-looking time for the UK and a vast majority of its people. I started work in the 60s and when I wanted more money or a different job, I changed jobs with ease. This was too much for the establishment and the plan was hatched in and out of Europe. Only the people involved were not the British or English people as they were known. It was for a total obliteration of these peoples that the plan was thought of and seen to fruition. First things first, education had to be demolished in its present state. Grammar schools were changed to comps, which was another name for council schools. Private schools were investigated and public schools likewise. Then the first wave of Asian migrants hit mid-60s and a new generation of West Indian blacks and half-castes were being born, shoved into state schools to make classes bigger and eventually outnumber indigenous children in the inner cities. Plan 1. Plan 2. Demolish the English family, of course, for their own good. Bring on the pill, easier divorce and lower the abortion age. Encourage girls to be independent and older women and men to find their own space. Single holidays and living accommodation flourished. Cosmo told you how to have an orgasm and Women's Own knitted you one. Anti-war, anti-establishment, pro-commune and pro-Marxist ethos abounded. People dressed down and to look as one looked a generation ago was deemed old-fashioned, that is, clean. Bare tits and short shorts to encourage promiscuity were the norm. Key parties and more, but the web had yet to make its appearance. Marriage was officially downgraded. I could go on forever as these plans encompassed entire communities and educational facilities, permeating and still wound up tightly within the university system, which took all the good polytechnics and art schools and turned them into diversity unis with all that marvellous feel-good propaganda to spread out. Goodwill to all men, and the more ethnic they are the better, you will feel. Then of course the cherry on the cake, after 50 years of this, what we have been told we are, we have become. Reliant on foreign food, reliant on foreign goods, reliant on foreign manufacturing for everything that we used to produce with the help of our educated or blue-collar young in this country. Our schools and polys turned out workers for England. We could drive English cars on uncrowded English roads, passing through uncrowded English high streets to unbuilt-on English fields, passing white English people. Now no one can turn the clock back on this terrible and long-term plan, which has succeeded. But like all plans, it can be terminated and altered. Reasons? Look at our cities, towns and villages. Look at what food we eat and how we get it. Soon the huge supermarkets will be defunct and it would have been better to simply stay and build larger on the high street and then go easily into the web for groceries. Then you would not have, in the future, huge empty malls and supermarkets, all of which employed behind the scenes vast amounts of immigrants as well as their cousins repacking, in cling film, British food in Thailand. We've grown away from what we should be, and one of the main reasons is employing millions of foreigners in this country on the say-so that we Brits are no longer fit to work. We are not working because we cannot get jobs anymore. If you're white and over 45, forget it, unless you want to sweep streets, and the Poles do that. 42,000 Romanians and Bulgarians, the lowest of the low even on the Eastern European scene, have got UK jobs. But even discounting that, take into account the millions of Asians and Indians buying and running British businesses. They've taken over the taxi ranks, the corner shops, the drug trade and the sex trafficking trade, and in fact have enlarged that very well. Massive immigration does not make a country better. It makes a country overcrowded, unhappy and takes away hope for many generations to come. We owe it to our young to make laws and rules which include, not preclude them and our elderly and homeless. A good government looks after its own, not the rest of the world in general. Soon we will be the only country, even in Europe, who turns on a TV and all the faces are ethnic and not European. How sad is that? And what an example of what we think of our own youth. And finally, Jewish humour. A 25-year-old Jewish girl tells her mum that she's missed her period for 2 months. Very worried, the mother goes to the local pharmacy and buys a pregnancy test kit. The test confirms that her daughter is pregnant. Shouting and crying, the mother says, "Who was that selfish bastard who did this to you? I demand to know." Without answering, the girl picks up the phone and makes a call. Half an hour later, a Bentley stops in front of their house. A middle-aged and very distinguished man steps out of the car and enters the house. He sits in the lounge with the father and mother and tells them, "Your daughter has informed me of the problem. I can't marry her because of my personal family situation, but I'll take charge. I will pay all costs and provide for your daughter for the rest of her life." He continues, "Additionally, if a girl is born, I will bequeath 2 retail furniture stores, a deli, a chateau in France and a £1 million bank account." He continues, "If a boy is born, my legacy will be a chain of jewellery stores and a 25 million bank account. However, if there's a miscarriage, I'm not sure what to do. What would you suggest?" All silent at this point, the mother placed a hand firmly on the man's shoulder and told him, "You'll try again." You've been listening to The World at 8. I'm Lynn Mozart, and I and the team at World at 8 and Radio Britain wish you all a very happy and a very safe weekend.